Bill has met people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars who have told them, like, I made it all the way to the top and I wouldn't do it again. I'm on my fourth marriage. So he has like a life plan that he's created.
When you think of someone that's at the top of their game and that has just their hands, like once you get to a certain level.
So I started getting really good in golf, which I got started through the Big Brother program. She took me down to Los Angeles, played in a tournament as I was getting better and better and better.
I'll let them do it and I'll give them the most impact that I can, but it's just because I genuinely don't like doing the one-on-ones. I like doing the one-to-many. So
what is the number one thing that I need to do to get from a 13 handicap to underneath the 10 in 2 minutes?
How much we were going to keep, how much profit was, what her expenses were to take me to LA to get more shirts, and what we needed to pay Mr. Jacoby to get another round of shirts, and that 100 turned into 200. And if anybody knows anything about sales and marketing, the number one reason I do that is to build rapport and personal relationship.
What do you say to people that are saying Airbnb is dead? And where do you think that comes from?
One of her secret sauces is we've coined the term for her that she does a restoration hardware design on a home goods budget.
I don't know if I could ever get to that level. I know that it takes, compounding over time, consistency, discipline, but welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we had an exciting episode. We interviewed Bill Faeth. He is an Airbnb coach, an 8-figure business builder. Bill seems to have his hands in a lot of different sectors. Specifically, we talked about short-term rentals today. He also had a big limousine business. He has a coaching business. And he runs in a lot of the same circles as us and a lot of people that we aspire to be like and hang around in the as we kind of scale and level up in our kind of careers and investing world. But hell of an episode today.
Yeah, he scaled 15 different companies. You mentioned limousine marketing agency. He has the number one short-term rental brand in the industry. This company called Super Properties. He actually said it was proprietary. Like, he created this thing. So basically, Bill has over 60 properties that are like, when they call them super, some of them are like mega mansions that are like just absolutely crush it with 10 bedrooms and the backyard and the hot tubs and the saunas and all that stuff. But he has some properties that are like 2 beds in like just. His thing is finding the perfect market for your property. He's saying stay away from the Smoky Mountains and the Destin, Floridas and the places that are all saturated. He's finding properties in Montana. He's finding properties in Alabama. He's going the extra mile. And I want people to listen to this episode all the way through, because he not only says like his special touch that he puts on this, like truly going that extra mile, like doing the extra thing that most people won't do. He literally does a face message of FaceTime to his guests as soon as they book, and like and says, I want to, make sure that I have accessibility to you, and that he's forefront with everyone who's booking. And then we get philosophical about life, and Bill has met people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars who have told them, like, I made it all the way to the top and I wouldn't do it again. I'm on my fourth marriage. So he has like a life plan that he's created. I just think the conversation is so like, it goes in so many different directions, and like, you can't listen to Bill for more than 30 seconds without being just drawn into what he's saying, because he has so much knowledge. And for people that are listening, he's hosting a boot camp in Montana, actually. If you're listening to the episode, you can go for free. It's pretty damn cool. It's in October. So he talks about like the actual dates and everything. But the guy is the real deal. Like, you can just tell. And I said that like a couple times throughout the episode. I was like, damn, we're interviewing somebody who's he's got it dialed in. Life, business, entrepreneurship.
Yeah. When you think of someone that's at the top of their game and that has just their hands, like once you get to a certain level, I don't know. I worked for a company for a while, and we met the CEO and the president. He was just one of those polarizing individuals. I'm not going to mention the name, but you just wanted to ride out for the guy. And you were like, he treated you as if it was like kind of like your dad, and just knew your name and you could tell he just knew a lot about a lot and was worldly.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Bill reminded,
and he cared. That was the biggest thing that I noticed about him, because I know you're talking about.
I think, and it was like he gave us access and proximity to him, and actually like wanted to know about us. And Bill has that it factor, and I haven't met many people like that. And so when you get around those people, you want to stay as close as possible, because they just like, there's something about them, and you can just tell there's a genuinity about him, right? There's not like, he's not out to get you. He doesn't have this way of talking down to you. He talks high level a lot of things, and talks about what he's done for sure, but then unpacks them and is willing, like he spent the last 30 minutes with some tips and tricks on how to help us market and grow our coaching platform. And then when we shut off the show, he went even further. So it was just really cool. He's willing to give back. We asked him before the show, we're like, dude, why are you doing all these things? Like, why did you accept to come on the show? We always want to know why people want to come on the show, where they found us, all these things. And he's like, man, I'm just giving back at this point. Like, he's like, I see young, hungry guys they're getting after it. And like, I was you back in the day. And it's just cool, man. Like, I love people like that. We're trying to do that early on in our stage, in our careers, because we've seen so many people wait till they get older to do it. But yeah, if you are just interested in business and entrepreneurship, and then with a sprinkle of real estate on top, this is the episode for you. It's really cool. And then I think it just gives you a peek into Bill's world, and you can kind of go follow him from there. But yeah, if you want, as we're going through it, if you want to follow him, his handle is Bill Faeth 73. That's BILLFAETH 73 on Instagram. He's got roughly 10,000 followers, but don't be swayed by the lack of followers. I know some people are like, oh, if they don't have 10K plus, I'm not following them. Like, Bill, he doesn't need the social media, man. The amount of dough this guy makes and the amount of lives he impacts positively, social media doesn't mean it. And he also has other major platforms. I think his Facebook group is like 33,000. So I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy from the social media, but you'll understand from the episode.
To give you an idea, right? Well, the audience, he's retiring on $10 million a year. That's what he said in the episode.
Generating $10 million a year.
I mean, retiring on the income coming in $10 million a year. So, pretty solid.
Yeah, these are the rooms you pay to be in. So these are the episodes that we really like to bring to you guys, because a lot of people would have to pay to be in a room. He talked about for 1 hour session, it's $1,500. He doesn't like doing one-on-ones. So he sets a crazy pricing. If someone's willing to pay that, I'll let them do it. And I'll give them the most impact that I can, but it's just because I genuinely don't like doing the one-on-ones. I like doing the one-to-many. So with that, you basically just got $1,500 for free, a little mini mastermind today with Bill. It went over an hour and 15 minutes. It's worth it to stay to the end. And yeah, man, packed with everything that you could possibly want in an episode. So without further ado, let's bring in Bill.
It's time to flip the script on how you invest in real estate. Backflip is one company out there that is actually changing the game. Backflip is an all-in-one platform that gives you the insights, capital, and community to find and fund your fix and flip real estate deals. The app is completely free. And actually, the part Ryan and I love the most is you can pull comps, estimate profits for multiple exit strategies in seconds, and apply for a personalized loan all in one place. We're talking a 96% loan to cost ratio and no upfront fees. Check it out for yourself. Download the Backflip app today.
Having purchased investment properties as well as primary residences, we know how daunting it can be to find a reliable lender to secure financing for real estate in the market today. With the up and down of the market, high interest rates, and the complexity of the process, honestly, it can feel like a lot. So to help out our community, we decided to bring on probably the most important person, or one of the most important members of our personal real estate investing team, onto the show to help out our listeners. Our mortgage lender, Travis David of CMG Home Loans, has agreed to educate our community and assist anyone looking for real estate financing. Whether you're a real estate investor looking to fund your next project or simply looking to purchase a primary residence, Travis will be able to help you and point you in the right direction. So he provides each of his clients with a tailored roadmap designed to guide them through purchasing their first investment property and strategically scale their portfolios over time. So if you're looking to either purchase your first residence or maybe second residence, but a primary residence, or invest in real estate, Travis is your guy. Visit our website at www.juice-enterprises.com/need-funding to book a call with Travis to explore all the loan packages that him and his team currently have available. He'll also help assess your current situation and will work with you to map out a plan for the future. So just remember this, we can all win. This is an example we really wanted to help out our community, and something we find people are lacking in a daunting process. So if you are looking for real estate financing, we have your back. Make sure to visit our website and Travis will take care of you. Quick public service announcement for all of our listeners. First off, we want to thank you all for tuning into the show, not only this week, but we've seen you coming back episode after episode. And one thing we'd really like your assistance on, if possible, you know that our content's free and it takes a lot to pump this out every week. We're really looking to enhance our overall reviews on the show. That can be on Spotify, but mainly we are looking for Apple Podcasts. If you could please leave us a 5-star review, that will go so long and so far for us. Really, when people are looking to get on shows, they look to see how many 5-star reviews that show has and the number of reviews. So if you haven't left one, please just click on our show, you can scroll down to reviews and then leave the 5-star. Even if you can write a little blurb about us, like what maybe has helped motivate you or anything that is relatable to your life, that would go such a long way for us. And then in turn, it allows us to get high quality guests for future episodes. So if there's been a motivating episode that you can really think back to and that has really helped you in your life, please leave a review, because we'll be able to get someone like that on the show in the future to help someone else out. So that would be very much appreciated. And we look forward to continuing more episodes for you. Bill, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. We really appreciate you being here, and we're excited to be interviewing you today.
It's my pleasure. I'm super excited as well. Let's get it on.
I wasn't really sure where to start here, because as we kind of just chatted pre-recording, you have your hand in a lot of different buckets. You've done a lot of things throughout your career, but take us back maybe pre-real estate, just to give us an idea of how you became an entrepreneur, when the light bulb kind of hit you, where you're like, you know what, I can't work for the man. Like, give us your little entryway into this thing, and then we'll kind of pick your brain throughout.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to go all the way back to high school. So I guess even before that, I grew up with no father. My father left, and my mom and dad got divorced when I was 4 years old. My mom was a teacher. My whole family on her side, I don't know my father's side, we're all in education. So I think that's the reason that kind of led to what happened when I was about 15 years old. And my mother got this entrepreneurial hair up her ass and bought a preschool. And she knew nothing about running a business or anything. So I kind of remember sitting at our dining room table in Bakersfield, California, and her going over, you know, we didn't have QuickBooks and stuff like that back then. She had these ledgers and she was trying to figure out her expenses. And I'd be there helping her on the weekends, you know, in junior high school and stuff, sweeping up leaves and all that stuff. And that was kind of my first experience. And I would say as a kid, it's more of a negative one because I'm having to do work on the weekends instead of playing with my friends. But what happened is I started getting really good in golf, which I got started through the Big Brother program. She took me down to Los Angeles, played in a tournament as I was getting better and better and better. Met a guy named Jay Jacoby who owned American Pacific T-shirts. He gave me 5 T-shirts, like Karl Malone, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, I think it was Charles Barkley, and Magic Johnson. And I was a Lakers guy. So the other ones I sold. And my mom found out I sold those. And she's like, next time we see Mr. Jacoby down in LA at a golf tournament, you need to pay him back. So she had me walk up to him a few months later when I saw him in the summer at a tournament, like a junior am is like a pro am where, you know, a bunch of guys play with the juniors. And I apologized to him and I sold the shirts, and he's all, well, how much did you get for him? I said, $20. He's like, you know, those only cost me like $370 to make. This is like in 1988. Right. And long story short, after we got done playing, my mom was a chain smoker, so she'd sit out on the patio. He ran into her and he took us inside, bought us lunch. And he said, hey, how about if I send you guys home with 100 T-shirts? Bill, you can sell them and we'll go into business together. He knew that my mom didn't have that much money. We weren't poor, but she probably made 30 grand, 35 grand in the mid 80s as a teacher. So she couldn't really afford to take me down to LA for all these things. Long story short, I went to Kevin Thomas, who was like the starting linebacker, big black guy, on my best friend in high school. And I knew that if anybody tried to mess with him with my shirts, he'd beat the shit out of him. And then my other best friend, Michael Knight. Michael went to South High. We were all at West High. I went to the West High football games, and Kevin went to Bakersfield High School because Mike and I would get our asses kicked if we went to Bakersfield High School. We sold out of all the shirts on Friday night. Literally Saturday, dial-up phone, you know, attached to the wall. You guys remember those with like the 20-foot cord?
Yep.
We called Mr. Jacoby, told him what happened. And then my mom made me sit down and figure out how much we were going to keep, how much profit was, what her expenses were to take me to LA to get more shirts, and what we needed to pay Mr. Jacoby to get another round of shirts. And that 100 turned into 200. Long story short, I'll never forget, we made like $93,000 in a football season selling T-shirts at 3 different high schools for football games. And that's what literally propelled my career in golf. I ended up being the 3rd ranked player in the world coming out of high school. And if we wouldn't have had that money, I couldn't have traveled and played like an AJGA and all these different, you know, types of tournaments. So I saw what that money did for me and did for my mother. And I think I was, you know, hooked, you know, ever since then. So
wow.
As I mentioned to you in the pre-show, I was drop shipping Brazilian bikini sarong swimwear in 1992, 1993 on AOL chat rooms and on Netscape and stuff like that. It's because I played professional golf on the South American PGA Tour. I stayed with a family that literally was making that, their entire family of 8 people. And then they were the ones that would walk down to the marketplace on Saturday and the beaches, and they would sell their swimsuits. So the first year I went to South America, I played in Asia, played here. made about 190,000 bucks playing professional golf. And that's after I got a full ride to UCLA and dropped out after 3 months, just FYI. And so I went back the following year with Chad Kermel, who was from Houston that we traveled with, and he spoke fluent Spanish. I was very muy poquito español for me. And he communicated, and long story short, they started drop shipping via DHL for me. So I brought back like 50 to 100 suits, did that for 2 years. And then one of my best friends growing up, John, I had him staying in my apartment, managing some inventory. And here's the key. He fucked up my inventory, meaning he was a drug addict. He's recovering. He was trying to stay clean. He didn't. He started sending out like polka dot tops and, you know, black and white polka dot tops and literally orange solid bottoms. What happened was he screwed up all the inventory, and he did this for like 200 or 300 pieces. I got back like a month later. I'm like, what the fuck did you do? But it caught the eye of this small little startup company called Venus Swimwear, and nobody was selling different sizes. You could be a 0 on the bottom and a double D on top, and you had to buy a large, and then you had to alter the bottoms, and nobody was selling polka dots and stripes and solids. We started the mismatch because he was a fucking moron, and I ended up getting acquired by Venus Swimwear because of that, and that just sent my entire entrepreneurial career on a different trajectory.
So, Bill, you truly are, like, truly in every sense of the word, a serial entrepreneur. I'm looking over here, marketing agencies, limousine services, you know, the short-term rental business, which is, I want to hone in on that. But before we get into all that, it's not that often I get to talk to a professional golfer on here, and I have the bug. So what is the number one thing that I need to do to get from a 13 handicap to underneath a 10 in 2 minutes? Tell me, please.
Go to Academy or Walmart and buy a sleeve of tennis balls. Go to the putting green and go literally 2 feet away and make 25 in a row with a tennis ball, then put the golf ball down and see how fucking easy it is to make 25, because that tennis ball has a 1/4 of an inch of circumference around it to fit into the hole. Psychologically, that hole will look 5 times bigger when you put a golf ball down. Literally hit 300 putts, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet every time you go out to practice before you waste time going out to the driving range. It's not your swing. It's literally, if you can get to where you can make 75% of your 4-footers and inside, think about how many strokes you will save. And that takes the pressure off when you miss greens. Because if you're like a 13, you're hitting like 5 or 6 greens, you know, in regulation. So you got to get up and down literally 10, 12 times every single round, where I'm hitting, you know, 12, 13, 14 greens. And it takes all the pressure off the short game. That takes the pressure off your mid game. That takes the pressure off the tee.
Okay, what a great answer. I didn't know that you would have that good of an answer. Okay, that's perfect. Anybody that's listening, that's in business, that golfs right there, that is gold information. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll send you a bill when we're done.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I know this can go in so many directions here. I mean, like, you have clearly a competitiveness that drives you to be a good golfer, that drives you to be a good business person. Like, that psychology is something interesting. But I want to know how you got into real estate next, specifically. You know, most of the people that listen to our show are probably involved in real estate in some capacity. They're either trying to use it as their investment vehicle, or they're maybe trying to build a real estate business. So Ryan and I have a coaching business that teaches people how to buy their first rental property. And that's like where we've landed as like some of the things that we can really provide major value. But I know you have super properties, and Airbnb has like become this major thing for you. So where did your entryway into real estate come? And then we can kind of dive in further there.
So I dropped out of UCLA when I was 19 years old after being there for 3 months. I turned professional 6 months later in professional golf. That after the end of that first year, that $195,000 I made, believe it or not, if anybody here is listening is in the e-commerce space, I spent between $170,000 and $200,000 to build my first e-com website, believe it or not. And it took like almost 7 months. The second year, after I was making a little bit of money drop shipping and then also playing golf, the second year, I didn't know what to do with my money, to be honest with you. And thank God my best friend, Jeff Stewart, was also my CPA and a golfer. He had me buy a duplex right before I turned 20 years old. And that duplex I held for 16 years, believe it or not. I paid I think it was like 190 some odd thousand, just under 200 grand, some number under 200,000 bucks. I ended up selling it for close to 900,000. That was in Bakersfield, California. That was my first foray into real estate. Since then, a lot of my businesses that I've started over the years, I've acquired the real estate for them. Like you mentioned, my limousine company, I built a 54,000 square foot building with 15,000 square feet of office on 4.5 acres, and it's gold LEED certified. Right around that time, I started investing. I bought a couple of long-term rentals here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was still in the limousine space in 2011 and 12, and I'm at city council battling Uber when they're penetrating every market illegally. And I'm lobbying against them, doing all this stuff. And I kept seeing these bills, and they were called Airbnb bills that would hit city council. And then I found a friend of mine who was an electrician that also had 2 units in the same building in downtown Nashville that I did. And he had started doing short-term rentals, Airbnb. And he said, Bill, you need to do this. I'm like, why would I do that? It sounds like a pain in the ass. I'd literally just collect checks, go have a maintenance guy to just take care of the broken sinks and that type of stuff. And, I don't have to worry about a tenant for a year or 2 years. Well, when he sat down and we had a bottle of wine together and he showed me his P&Ls and that he was doing 7 times the amount of monthly revenue of what I was doing, long-term renting versus short-term renting, I'm like, I got to get in. So in 2015, my wife and I bought our first place, a tier 2 beach house down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. We had a property manager take over. If you know the deal back in the day, the agent works for a property management company. Then the property manager comes in. That lasted all of about 90 days. I'm pretty experienced in marketing and sales. I helped HubSpot build their HubSpot partner agency program, built an $11 million marketing agency, and they didn't know how to fucking market. And what I found out is they were charging $2,500 a week. Properties across the street farther away from the beach are getting $4,000. And I'm like, something's got to give. So I took it over and then kind of figured out the whole system of revenue management, marketing. My wife's a designer, and we just kind of leveled up our properties, and just that was kind of the starting point. But the big thing is we didn't go from property number 1 in 2015 to property number 2 until 2018. And one of the things that makes me fundamentally different, and you guys know this in the syndication, right? If you're the GP, our goal is to get the LPs paid back as fast as we can or out so we have an infinite return as a GP, right? That mentality is something that I have implemented into how I built a $22 million short-term rental portfolio with one investment. This is things that most people don't understand. I put $126,000 into that first short-term rental. I've never put another penny into my portfolio. And that's because I'm trying to reposition. So there's 4 key factors, right? Cash flow, appreciation, debt pay down, tax benefits, leveraging all 4 of those, and kind of my secret sauce, which happens all the time in commercial, but just is not commonplace in residential. I just closed on a $3 million property, got $150,000 seller credit off the closing disclosure. That took me over $2.1 million in seller credits since 2018. And that's what I've used to fund the growth along with those other components of my portfolio. So I have never had to put another investment into it since I did in 2015.
Well, I want you to explain that maybe in a little bit more detail to us, Bill. But the one thing that creeped into my head as you were talking is, so you've done a lot of things right with Airbnb. I'm very curious to what you think. What do people get wrong the most with Airbnb? Like, what is the thing that holds most people back from having a short-term rental that's successful? And for some context, I have a property in Tampa, Florida that is amazing. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it's probably going to do 160 grand this year in revenue. And it's like, I couldn't pay my management company enough because I think they're really, really good. But I'm very curious, there's properties that are like that are flopping after 2020 and 2021. So what do people get wrong, especially in today's market?
Number one is they don't know how to underwrite. They follow the herd, right? Like what just natural human inhibition. Hey, where's everybody investing? You go to a Facebook group. Tampa, Orlando. Hey, go get a 2-bedroom in Kissimmee, which is just extremely saturated. Go to the Smokies and get a 3-2 in Wares Valley, and then you're just going to get fucking annihilated, right? It's following the herd. So one of the things that I've always done in every single business that I've done, Corey, is I have gone against the grain. And I'm also willing to do the shit that other people are not willing to do. So you may think, oh, Bill's done this and that, and he probably has 1 million people working for him, and he's got VAs here and that. I'm in the trenches every fucking day with my wife, every day. And because I'm willing to do that, and it's something as simple, I announced this at my conference, 2nd year, 2 years ago. This is called the welcome video. Every guest that books with me, hey, Corey, this is Bill. Thanks for booking Sunset Set. I'm excited to host you and your family at the lake property. Just wanted to put a name with a face. If there's anything I can do for you, me and my wife are here for you 24/7. Simple. Then I text it to you. Nothing automated. It's personalized. Nobody fucking does that. I had 1,000 people at that second conference, and I promise you less than 30 started doing the welcome messages, right? So I think people, 1, they don't know how to underwrite properties, and 2, they're not willing to go what I call the 2 extra steps. And if anybody knows anything about sales and marketing, the number one reason I do that is to build rapport and personal relationship. Number two is that happens like within 2 minutes of the time that they book. The only time I can't do that is when I'm on an airplane. And I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in first class and I pull it out and I do it. And the person next to me is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I got to send that the second that I get off this shitty Wi-Fi to my guests because they just booked. Because I got to get them to stop scrolling. Even though when somebody books an airline ticket, a resort, basketball tickets, or a short-term rental, they're still inquisitive. Did I get the best deal? Is there a place with better amenities that I can book with my family? Oh my God, look at that just popped up in the email from Airbnb. My family would love that. So I use strict cancellation policies. That means I have 48 hours. When somebody books with me, they are an SQL. That is a sales qualified lead. They are not a customer. They are not a customer until they have skin in the game after that 48 hours, and they're going to lose 50% of whatever their booking is. So it's my job to make sure they do not fire me before the end of that 48 hours. That's where people get it wrong.
No, you're right. No one does that. That personal touch, everyone is going with the grain and not against it. I have one thing for you. You talked about deal analysis. I think a lot of people, at least a lot of people in our coaching program, our students are asking, we're specifically leaned on long-term rentals, right? To get you your first deal. Cause it's as soon as that opens and you get that kind of under your belt, it's floodgates open. So, but now a couple of people have 2-3 units. Like, I kind of want to get into the Airbnb game. They want to know how to analyze deals. And there's a couple different tools out there, but the one that everyone hears about is AIR DNA because it gives certain features and gives, basically predictability on previous days. But then there's Price Labs and there's another couple things, and you can like pair them all together. Do you have a system or a process that you put into place for like a quick analysis of these properties to really project out what something could potentially earn?
I have a proforma that was built for multifamily, and I've applied that to the short-term rental space along with John, the Bank Whisperer Hodge, who's on my STR super team. He's done over 8,000 units in multifamily. And we believe that we can, if you do your numbers correctly into this proforma, and it's more than just using AIR DNA, I use at least 4 sources. STR Insights, in my opinion, is the most reliable. AIR DNA is number 2. Then I will go to Price Labs. You got to have the market research report that costs $10 a month for that. And then I'll use Rabu or Mashvisor, and I kind of average everything together. But here's where people struggle when they're buying their first property. They have no history. They have no benchmarks, right? It is way fucking easier for me to invest because I've owned 67 short-term rentals, and I benchmark every one of them from the time that I started. So right now, my portfolio is outperforming STR Insights and AirDNA's 90th percentile by 49%. In August, it was 52%, but it's come down 3%. So I know when I go in and I see a property that's going to do $100,000 in revenue by all 4 of those data sources, that I could underwrite at 152. I will typically give myself at least a 20% delta. I will reduce revenue by 10%, and then I will increase expenses by 10%. So I have, in professional golf, if anybody's ever played and seen like a professional golf yardage book, you see all the numbers to the front of the green, the bunkers, all that type of stuff. Well, on every hole off to the right-hand side and the left-hand side, there's always this acronym for just in case you fuck up. And this is on PGA Tour yardage book. So if I have to pitch out over a bunker, it's 57 yards. You know what I mean? So that's my just in case I fuck up, kind of acronym to put it in there to where I have a 20% delta. And I think that's the big thing that falls into the underwriting. Most people look at, okay, I'm going where everybody else is, and I'm going to go buy the property that I can afford. That's the biggest mental problem, right? You should not be buying what you can afford. You need to underwrite in a market based on bedroom counts that fit into your budget, and then determine which bedroom count and location in submarkets is going to produce the highest return on investment, right? As opposed to that people think they buy markets. We're actually going from market into submarket, and then we're buying an actual property, and the market really doesn't matter.
So, Bill, what do you have to say to people? I want to get into super properties too, because you talked about this previously, but what do you say to people that are saying Airbnb is dead? And where do you think that comes from? Because I'm hearing it all over the internet, not as much right now as I did like 6 months ago. And I was completely against what people were saying. I'm reading all these articles. Some of them are fake news. Some's coming out, and I'm like, wow, I wonder if it's like the hotel business is behind this. But I'm just curious, what do you say to those people that mention that?
I mean, I've got a great YouTube video, and I guess it came from my podcast on Airbnb from about 6 months ago on the Build Short-Term Rental Wealth YouTube channel. I'll give you kind of the Cliff Notes version. I hear it every day too. I've got 33,000 people in my Facebook group that I am very active in on a daily basis. And it's the people that bought the 2 or 3 bedrooms in those markets I mentioned, in Kissimmee, in the Smokies. Wares Valley specifically is getting hammered in the Smokies. They bought in the wrong location. Branson, Missouri. You know, anytime you see a market that is doing build to rent, I steer so far away from that. And so what happens is they buy the average property. And this was very, very common with professionals that had money, your dentists, your, attorneys, that type of stuff during COVID. I mean, you could buy anything you wanted during COVID and make money, right? But now you can't. Now it's like 2017, 18 all over again. I don't think there was a crash. I don't think there was an Airbnb bust. I think there was just a normalization, not even a correction, a normalization to what I knew pre-COVID, right? Do I like it? No, I wish we could have rode another 20 years on COVID, but it's just not realistic. So I think the expectations were very, very true at the time that they invested, but they're not true today because now is reality. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So there's a reason that my first property I bought in Gulf Shores versus in Destin. We decided to buy our first property when we were having lunch at the pizza place in Seaside in the heart of 30A. And a guy I played in South America with his family owned over 400 properties in Destin. And he said, 6-pack, you cannot afford to buy here with $126,000 because my wife had some parameters. See the water, hear it, and smell it. And you got to be like tier 4, tier 5. That doesn't happen with 120. And that was in 2015, let alone 2024. So we went to Gulf Shores. I went to Banner Elk, North Carolina, instead of going into the Smokies. I went to Smith Lake up by Birmingham instead of investing into the Timms Ford Lake, which is the closest to Nashville, or going down to Lake Martin, the big popular one, right? I went to Whitefish, Montana, and I have invested $5.5 million hard dollars, not real estate value, cash, into that market in the last 2 years, where everybody else is going to Big Sky or they're going to Jackson, right? I went to Cave Creek, Arizona versus going to Scottsdale, Arizona. From 2012 to 2018, this fucking town that I live in and have an office in and own LTRs in was the #1 market in the world. Nashville was. Never invested there because of the volatility of regulation and the politics inside of those city limits. So it's not necessarily about the super property that you mentioned, Corey. It's about really going where everybody else isn't. You need to look at, like, if you look at the reviews average in a market and you compare like the Banner Elk, Boone, Grandfather Mountain market to the Smokies, it's completely different. You go into the Smokies today and you buy a 5 or 6 bedroom, you want to spend $900, $1 million on a property, which a lot of people do today. You better have $100,000 in cash just for the game room, right? Or you better have an indoor mod pool, or you better plan on putting in 2 hot tubs versus 1. I can go to another market and get away with 1/3 of that budget post close, right? So it's all of these factors that go into it that have made my investing, I don't want to say bulletproof because I have made one really bad mistake. It was property number 2, but now I haven't made a mistake in 64 properties, right? And it's because of that pro forma that I use. It's because of how I underwrite. You mentioned super properties. I do want to define, because I do have the trademark and I started that term super property. Super properties, by definition, are the properties that massively outperform the market. Has nothing to do with size, has nothing to do with how cool they are, any of that type of stuff. I have a 2-bedroom condo that is a super property, and I just finished a 12-bedroom, 9-bath with 2 hot tubs, 2 game rooms, all the shit that's ginormous is a super property. It has nothing to do with the size. And most importantly, it's about maxing out your renovation and design budget to how do you turn a $100,000 design budget into $75,000. It stresses the shit out of my wife, and she's in Montana right now. I'm flying there tomorrow with her for our biggest deal we've ever done as a single family home in our personal portfolio. And she has a $150,000 budget to fully furnish a 4-bedroom, 3-bath with a loft, and then another house on the property that is 2 bedrooms that we just added 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, 2 hot tubs, just built another fire pit, all this stuff for $150,000. Most people would probably spend $250,000 to $350,000 on that. That lack of spending that extra 100, I get to apply that to the next purchase, and it completely changes my cash on cash return in year number 1.
Where are the secrets to spending that much less, Bill? And I asked the question because We're not Airbnb experts like you, but I remember I bought my property for $550,000 and spent 50 grand on furnishing. And really what did it for me, I think that the reason why the property performed so well is the backyard. It's like it's sort of an oasis, if you will, of just trees and brush. It's so natural, and there's a pool, and it just, it's inviting. When I saw the property, I was like, this is it. Like, people are going to love this. It might not, it's not going to necessarily bring me $7,000 a month in pure cash flow. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a property that was going to appreciate in a market and it was going to pay me monthly, and it's exceeded those expectations. I asked the question to say, how are you saving money the way that you are? And how much is that design element a factor in some of these properties doing as well as they do?
Look, it's huge in every form of real estate, from commercial design when you're designing a retail location to LTRs, MTRs, and STRs. I don't see any difference. I just get a better return on STR than I do on LTR, right? And I still do today. One of the big things is just how you source, right? So my wife is just a freaking beast at finding something on Pottery Barn for $485 and finding the exact same thing by doing Google reverse image searching and the Amazon tools and that type of stuff to find two for $185, right? Once again, it's 2 extra steps. It's willing to put in the work that everybody else is too fucking lazy to do. Oh, well, I'm just going to buy those, the outdoor planners for $485 from Pottery Barn. That looks good. As opposed to really doing that little extra work for every single thing that we do. I know you guys are in the north, so you don't have these stores up there, but one of her secret sauces is we've coined the term for her that she does a restoration hardware design on a home goods budget, right? And a big part of that in the South is Rooms to Go, which has great quality furniture, couches, all that type of stuff. But it's a fraction of the price of Ashley furniture. It's sure not Our House or Restoration Hardware. So sourcing those deals using, great GPOs like Minoan. Doesn't matter if you're in short-term, long-term, even personal, looking at something like Minoan. Like, we're big Our House fans, ARHAUS, if you guys are familiar with that. It's like one step down from Restoration Hardware. But man, you go to Minoan, you get a 40% discount every single day of the year on the majority of their products, right? So sourcing becomes critical. We buy so much from Amazon that we just created our own store. If anybody's ever done that, not to make a shit ton of money because we make like 3 cents on a $400 transaction, but to curate a place of everything that we use in our beach houses, our mountain houses, all that type of stuff, to make it easy, because my wife is so good at finding these deals. And it's everything from coffee pods to couches, to barrel saunas. I just bought a Almost Heaven one-person sauna to put in my new Montana property for $997 because I spent literally like 20 minutes searching for it, as opposed to going direct to their website and paying $2,300. I literally saved roughly $1,400 on that barrel sauna. So now I can use that to add the extra coffee bar in the master suite. I can use that to add something else in the guest house. You know what I mean? I might go in and put in the $299 Frigidaire ice maker that does like sonic pellet ice, from Costco, that I can get it, right? It's that same pellet ice maker for $299 on Costco is being sold on all the other GPO websites for around $425. So sourcing those deals becomes super, super duper important. Using Home Goods, TJ Maxx, those types of places to get your pillows, your artwork at a lower price. And then there's little tricks, right? One of the biggest mistakes I see people make in design in any type of real estate property, once again, STR, MTR, LTR, is they buy small, cheap artwork. Well, what happens is it makes the space look small, makes it look cheap. So she used to buy everything at Home Goods when she could, but now she's going and sourcing high-res images for like $20 to $30 on Etsy. And then she'll go, I can't remember the name of the place, if it's Printify or whatever it is. She gets it printed and then she frames it herself. And she's literally saving like 75%. We're talking 3x5 nice wood frames from like Michael's or wherever it is for like less than $100, where we're paying $500 to $800 for those things in a furniture store.
I've read about all of these tactics, read about them all in books, but or I don't know if it's books, YouTube, basically like synthesizing all the information, right? And putting it out into like almost like an outline, right? And we had this for our STR. It's so funny that just people truly aren't willing to do it because it's so much easier. People go for convenience. every day of the week. Like, yep, nah, whatever. I see it on Amazon here. It might be 3 times, but they're going to spend it, right? And you've just proved that over time how much you can save and you can build an empire around it. It's amazing. I have a question for you based on scrolling it back in time. There's a lot of people that listen to our podcast that are aspiring real estate investors, and they want to get into the short-term rental space, and they see a behemoth of an investor on the show, and they're like, whoa, I don't know if I could ever get to that level. I know that it takes, compounding over time, consistency, discipline, but if someone's starting out, you mentioned a bunch of markets that are very heavily marketed. Kissimmee, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but then a couple other markets you mentioned in Florida. I'm like, wow, I've heard all of these names, the Smokies, all this pop up, right? And that's where it pulls people in. And that you mentioned, like, that's the mistake, right? You want to go elsewhere.
Stop. Stay the fuck out of those markets. Go to Taos, New Mexico. Go to Shenandoah, Virginia. Go to, any place on the northwestern side of the state of fucking Michigan. There's so many better opportunities. Here's the deal. It's like, if anybody here watches CNBC, you listen to Ron Insana, you listen to Jim Cramer. If you're getting stock tips from them, boys, you're about 72 hours too late, and it's already expired. If you listen to me or Bigger Pockets or Kenny Bedwell, any of the podcasts, by the time we share that stuff with you publicly, it's already gone past. I mean, I give my good stuff to my masterminds and my inner circles long before I talk about it on a podcast. Right? Same thing those guys do. Why do you think Congress people make so much fucking money? Because they get the insider trade every day, in the stock market. It's the same thing here. So I would just tell you got to look for the secondary and tertiary markets, steering away from those primary markets, right? Like, instead of going into, Kissimmee or Davenport or stuff like that, look in Winter Park. Look at, the Cocoa Beaches. The places that people are not talking about on social media are the ones that are going to be untapped, where you can go in and create your own opportunity.
There's so many directions to go here. I really want to talk about, maybe the mindset that it took you. I can just tell the place that you're in your life where it's like you really want to give back, but like you have done so much and you have so much information to give. I can tell by the way that you answer these questions. I'm curious, like, kind of what drives you, like what has made you be this serial entrepreneur? Like what is it about doing what you do that you love? Maybe a little more philosophical, but that's just one of the questions that came into my head.
So number one, you use the word love. I only invest in the markets that I have a love for and buy properties that I have an interest in. It's completely different in the short-term rental space than it is in multifamily or in LTR, because literally you live it every day. It's not a passive business. I don't care what anybody tells you. If you're the one that's looking to automate and have VAs do everything and everything be automated, you're going to fall right back down into that 50th percentile, and it's going to be challenging to make money. You've got to treat this like you are in the hospitality business. And when I'm talking about in the hospitality business, I'm talking like Four Seasons concierge level, right? To where I used to go to Boston all the time when I was, working with HubSpot and building out their partner program. I stayed at the Four Seasons on Boylston, right across from Boston Commons. I could walk to the north end to go get a 4,000 calorie meal, every single night. And literally every time I walked into that hotel, the concierge was over to the right, about 30 feet away. Welcome back, Mr. Faeth. And then I wasn't there for 5 or 6 months. I came back and it was a male concierge I'd never seen before. Welcome back, Mr. Faeth. I'm like, and I walked over that. I'm like, how the fuck do you know my name? We have never met. And I said, I mean this in a positive way. I need you to tell me what you're doing. We get a list of all of our guests at 8:00 in the morning when we start our shift or whatever it was. And we are required to search them on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, so we can recognize you by face and not have to ask you what your name is. That's the level of hospitality that we need in this space, right? It's different than LTR. So what I believe is that if people really want to get into this, they need to understand that this takes a little bit more effort than it does using a property manager, a co-host, or doing a traditional long-term rental. But the biggest thing is steer away from where everybody else is investing. And there's some, in the short-term space, there are 2 skills that you have to really be able to excel. Number one is going to be revenue management. LTR, we can set the price at $2,500 and we're going to get that for 12 consecutive months, right? And then when we go up to renew the lease, we might be able to increase it by 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever it is. Maybe charge for parking if we didn't previously and we acquire a new building or something. In STR, that pricing changes every single day. And if we're not doing that manually, and if you're not an expert at revenue management, you need to hire somebody to do it for you. Number 2 is listing optimization and off-platform marketing. That is where I make my money with those 2 skills. And the people that are getting average results are not good at those 2 skills. The people that are ascending up to what I do, and there are plenty that are able to ascend to what I do. I'm not a titan in the industry. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm a college dropout. I have nothing special about me at all, except for I put in the fucking work. And when I put in the fucking work and the time, I mean, boys, you're my 3rd podcast today. I did 4 coaching calls today, and I've been up since 3:18 this morning. I ran 3 miles. I did a sauna this morning. I just ended, thank God, a 92-hour fast yesterday. You know, it's about commitment and it's about dedication. And I believe the only advantage I have is not having a father growing up and not growing up wealthy, and having people drive me in athletics to learn those disciplines. And I've applied them at every business that I've done in life. But one of the biggest things is price elasticity in any business. And that's one of the things I don't like about long-term or anything that requires longer-term contracts in any business, not even just real estate. You know, you get into a marketing agency and, you know, somebody signs a $3,000 a month, 12-month contract. Stupid from the agency standpoint, right? So you need to have price elasticity to where you can max out your pricing. And the only way you can do that is to really have an intimate relationship with your ideal buyer and understand and learn and do focus groups and learn what their thresholds are. So I would tell you that my superpowers, I probably know my number 1 buyer persona, which is wealthy Wendy, better than anybody else inside of this space, because I put in more time and more research and tested my pricing elasticity and my amenities and asked. That's one of the things. Most people don't ask their guests after they stay what they loved and what they hated about the property. You go into any property, any hotel chain, there's something that you like and dislike every time you walk in that door. We have to ask, and we have to fix that to target our ideal buyer.
Bill, you mentioned putting in the work, and I think this is like a not really cliche, but I want to get a little bit more granular with it, because what you just mentioned. I by the way, I saw the fast too, which I thought which was great. But I'm curious, how do you manage your time? Like, what are there things that you do specifically?
Not for sale, just FYI. I'm not pitching anything. This is my success planner that I built in 2018. There's 2 big components to this. Number 1 is I track every single task or priority, and I have a start time and a completion time. That sounds kind of maniacal to a lot of people that think, wow, why would you do that? Well, because you fuck around and it takes you 2 hours to write an email that you should have spent 15 minutes on. You wake up in the morning, and what I found is when I'm tracking every single thing, I'd wake up and I grab my phone's the first thing, and the next thing I know, it's 90 minutes later because I've been on Facebook, you know, or social media or answering emails or whatever. So very disciplined now to start off a morning routine to track the start and stop. I know that it takes me an average of 2 minutes and 30 whatever seconds to brush my teeth. I know that it takes me an average of like 4.5 minutes to go to the bathroom in the morning. You know, if I have to go number 2 versus number 1, I know where my time wasters are. Now I know literally what distracts me, right? So like right now today, I mean, I would 5-10 years ago, I'd have notifications going off, software updates, text messages coming in, and I'm just not focused on you guys. Now I am. So I'm trying to optimize, and I wish I would have been smart enough or known how to do this in my 20s or early 30s. I was really about 46 when I started, or 44 when I started this. I'm 51 today. I'm just trying to optimize every facet of my life, every facet. And for some reason, human beings don't learn this at a young age. It takes age and experience and maturity, to grasp that. So the health part, huge deal for me. I completely changed my health in the last 18 months. Hemoglobin, triglycerides, weight, all that type of stuff, completely different today. I have changed my mentality. I've changed my personal life, everything. I quit caffeine about 3 months ago after being a 200-ounce a day Diet Coke guy for 35 years, right? You see me drinking alkaline water. Just every single thing I'm trying to optimize in my life, because as I get older and I see my in-law, my mother's passed away, but I see my in-laws and what my father's going through. I've got a really good friend named Martin Cove. He's Sensei Kreese on Cobra Kai and The Karate Kid, if anybody's ever seen that show. I had him come and be a special guest at one of my STR Wealth conferences. And right around that time, my father-in-law fell and had an accident and was hurt severely, and we didn't think that he was going to make it. And my wife and I are talking. She's like, you know that my dad's the same age as Marty? And Marty is just ripped at the age of 76, right? And he's just in great shape, great health. still can do anything that a 50-year-old or even a 45-year-old can, but yet my wife's father's struggling. So I look at all those things, and one of the things that I learned from one of my mentors, John Bairden, in 2015, when I rebuilt my entire life plan, which I actually just said I rebuilt, I didn't have a life plan. Two things were super important. Number one is there is no separation of church and state. Work-life balance is bullshit, especially for a high achiever, right? You have to mold those together and integrate your family into your work life. And work life, we can't turn it off, when we're at home, but we got to make sure that we're not compromising the family. So they have to be intertwined together. And then the second thing is you need to know when enough is enough. And I didn't know that until 2016. I know what it is now. I've got enough money. I have a low enough amount of debt. I have everything that I want on that side, but I don't have the family side down yet. Does that make sense? So once I get the family side, then that financial freedom can turn into retirement. Right now I have financial freedom, but I don't have retirement as I define it, because we all define it differently. I'm not going to be Al Bundy or Bart Simpson sitting on the couch with my hand down my pants watching, TV all day. I'm still going to do things very similarly to what I do today. But because I built that plan in 2015 with the help of John Bairden, I have now started to scale out of all of my businesses. And what I mean by that is I've structured them or restructured them in a facet to where as I start to sunset to my retirement date, which is May 22nd of 2027, my youngest daughter will graduate from high school on that date. Then we're done. Then my wife and I can travel. We can do whatever we want. And my oldest daughter's in college this year. She'll be in college. And we have the freedom that we don't need to drive her to school, pick her up, cook for her, all those types of things. All that part of the life plan ties into how I invest in the business side. The business side of investing and the time that I have to invest into coaching, managing real estate, traveling around the country, looking for more hotels or more single family homes factors in to the family side of the
Bill,
life plan.
This is very important to talk about. It's funny. I think I don't know how the conversation gets here, but it's sort of evolves over time as we start talking. It gets more philosophical as we go on, but I really like this part of the conversation because as you get older, things start becoming a priority. I don't know what it is, but as soon as I hit my 30s, I'm like, my body's feeling different. And like, I'm super trying to be dialed in with my health now, as opposed to waiting until I'm 50. Right. And you're mentioning there's like a lot of things you can do that are like, aside from Western medicine, there's Eastern medicine and functional doctors and things, and like really like dialing in your health and just that can parlay and pivot into business too, right? There's certain things you can kind of dive in on that you never even thought about, and optimizing yourself. There's biohacking. There's so many different things, right? But what I'm bringing up on this is the life plan. Everybody plans around their job or their professional life, but not the like social and kind of like family life and tying it all in together. So can you talk about a life plan and like how someone would go about that? And how did you even think to do that? Did it just come a point where something big happened? You're like, oh shit, like I need to get my life together? Or did you just stumble on it?
No, I was in EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. If anybody's familiar with that, I got recruited into a forum and had a shitty experience in the forum, which is different than the whole EO organization, even though it's a part of it, right? So we had 9 people in our forum. We had 3 overachievers and 6 underachievers. And, they don't get along very well. So finally, after about 6-7 months, I walked into a meeting and 4 or 5 of the 6 guys didn't have financials. They weren't prepared. And I'm just like, fuck this. I'm done. Threw my shit on the table. Alan, John, if you want to come with me, I'm starting my own mastermind called Spark. And we're going to fix all the problems within our forum, right? So then we found this gentleman named John Bairden, who was a 2-time Fortune 500 CEO, now an angel investor, retired, all that stuff. We actually brought him in. We brought in a few more people. We started with 6 in Spark. And literally the first thing that he did, we have our cash flow reports, income statements, P&Ls, balance sheets, business plans, all that stuff. He walks in and he says, you guys can put all that stuff aside. You want to be just like me, don't you? Probably worth a couple $100 million. Yeah, we all do. We were all in probably the $5 million to $20 million range at that time. We wanted to ascend to build what he'd built. He said, no, you don't. You realize I've been divorced 3 times. My oldest son, who just became the president of a bank, hasn't even spoken to me for 3 years. I have sacrificed my entire personal life for my career. And now I'm on my 4th marriage. And I promised her I will never go back into business again. Like literally officially retired. Because he knew what that drive would do to his 4th marriage. So we started, and he's the one that taught us the life plan. He's the one that we had to define what our retirement means. And he had one rule. You had to be able to measure everything, and money and time, whatever that is. So we had to set a very specific date. So I told you May 22nd of 2027 is my retirement date. That started when I wanted to retire at 60 with $500,000 in income, right? Now it's like I'm going to retire at 54 with $10 million a year in income, right? It's completely transcended and changed because I had that end goal to work with. So I mentioned in the pre-podcast that, me and my wife, we have in our agreement that we have to have sex 3 times a week. And a lot of people scoff at that when I say that publicly, but what happened is we found out we were doing it like once or twice every 2 weeks. And then what we really found out is it was because of both of the ways that we were brought up, completely different upbringings, but we are not lovey-dovey. We're not huggers. I'm not going to see you guys for the first time at a conference or whatever and come up and give you a big bro hug. I'm just not that guy. I'll fist bump you. I'll shake your hand, whatever. So we had to define what intimacy was for the two of us. So just when she's cooking, me walking up, putting my arms around her, kissing her on the cheek or whatever, we never did that. We had to learn like those 5 love languages, if anybody's read that book, about each other. And we found out that it wasn't because we weren't attracted to each other anymore. It was that literally just the way that we were brought up and the way we're living our lives led to a lack of intimacy. And then that lack of intimacy, as we started learning about ourselves and about parenting and just getting deeper, I have 2 girls. That's affecting our girls, how they're seeing that we are not kissing each other. We're not telling each other we love them in front of them. That all changed immediately, right? Because I didn't want my girls who are now 18 and 15 to grow up the way that I did or the way that she did. So we had some really strict goals that we worked into the life plan for our kids. So we have a financial plan. We have our retirement goals. We know how much debt we're comfortable with, how much cash we need, and we're forecasting all of this based on inflation, just like we would forecast a business 36 months out, 60 months out, whatever it is. And most importantly, we tie that into what we want. So we have specifically invested into places that we have an interest in. One, so that way I still have an interest in hosting and marketing it and doing all that type of stuff, but we want to spend time there. If nobody's been to Montana, Montana's the greatest fucking place on earth. There's a reason that I have 4 places now there and I'm still buying. But that whole life plan ties into what we wanted. And here's the key. This is the apex for it. Like if I showed you my Fridays, inside of my planner here, from noon to 4, I'm probably the most accessible coach I've ever seen in my life. For free, people, like Corey, you DM me on Instagram, I get back to you, lo and behold, a week or 2 weeks later, we're on a podcast. Nobody does that. Well, that's just the part of what's happened. I wouldn't have done that 10 years ago, but now I've opened up to be able to do those things. But here's the big thing on Friday. The only time I'm not going to reply to somebody on a DM on Instagram or a phone call or a message or a text is between noon to 4 on Fridays. That is one of my former social media managers branded it as Faith Friday. That's where we meet every single week, and we will go. She gets to pick wherever we're going. We could go ballroom dancing. We could go have lunch and a bottle of wine at our favorite Italian place, whatever it is. But we're auditing the last 7 days, and we're planning for the next week. So we're going through, and we both take our planners, and we look at what our goals and priorities were for that week as parents, as lovers, as best friends, and then as business partners, right? So, and business is always last. A lot of people think I'm this hardcore business guy, but that is like my 4th priority. It's just what everybody wants me to talk about, right? It really starts with our girls. And after doing it for about 2 years, as our girls got older, we brought our girls in when we would get done and we'd come back at 4 o'clock. How did mommy and daddy make you feel this week? What's something that we did good, we did bad? On a scale of 1 to 10, how loved did you feel this week? And one of the big things that as my daughters became teenagers for me was really to make sure that they had a tremendous amount of self-confidence, because that is a huge problem for young women in our society, but also to teach them financial literacy and to be savage. I don't want my girls pussyfooting around and getting ran over by guys with my personality. So I really had to be very strategic in that. And my oldest daughter, who just went to Belmont University 3 weeks ago, we were really afraid. She's very introverted. She didn't have many friends in high school. She kind of migrates to older people and connects with them, her teachers, her coaches, that type of stuff. And man, She is integrated into that place so well with like 3 or 4 different friend groups already and stuff. She's thriving in the classroom because of that. And if anybody has kids, if you send a girl off to college and she has issues with friends, then it creeps into the classroom, and she's a 4.0 student, right? So that savage tied with that self-confidence and getting her to open up is something that has been absolutely critical for us as parents.
Bill, this is brilliant advice. I really appreciate you sharing as we wind down, because it's almost like, and you are so many levels ahead of us, which that's why I'm glad we're able to have this conversation. But to hear that there's been people that you've chatted with that are levels ahead of you telling you, don't do what I did. Don't do that, because life, and Ryan and I have starting to get a good grasp on this. It's so much more important to live a life that you are really fulfilled with and love doing the things that you do than to make $100 million. And I don't say that from experience, because obviously we haven't gotten to that point, but the more people that I talk to that have told me you have to create your version of success. I feel like you've done that really well. So it's awesome, man. I love it. The last question I have as we wind down is, if you could go back to that 18-year-old self who was selling the t-shirts, maybe you were younger, right? But like, who already, it seemed like you already had an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm very curious what you would tell your 18-year-old self, knowing all of the things you know now about life, business, family, friends, and just, the experience.
Show your mother that you loved her more than you did. It's really pretty simple. I mean, once my mom and I started in business together, it kind of changed our relationship. And I went from being a mama's boy to, kind of almost like a business partner. I remember when she passed away, I was with my oldest daughter, and, I probably didn't show her enough love. And I think that's very common, especially with boys and their mothers as they get older. And I've seen it a lot as, adolescents turn into teenagers, and then teenagers turn into young adults. And I tell my oldest daughter who went to college, I said, call your mother, and she was with my oldest daughter was in the room with me when we exited the hospital for the last time. And I got a call 3 hours later that my mom had passed away. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't kiss her and tell her I love her before I left. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. And I think we all have opportunities to show the people that mean the most to us how much they really mean, how much that we love them, and we don't take advantage of it. So that's what I would tell. It has nothing to do with business or entrepreneurship or anything. I would tell my 18-year-old self to, you know what, you probably only have another 10 or 12 years with your mom, who was everything in your life to turn you into the human being you are today. Make sure she knows how much you love her.
That's a good answer, Bill. I think you hit on the psychological part of that too. I mean, I just know for me, and maybe it is I don't want to call us all type A, but the driven individual, right? And I think we just get so wrapped up in our routine and starting our family and starting our businesses, things. And you tend to forget where you came from sometimes, not where you came from, but like giving the attention to the person or the people that raised you, right? And all the time, energy, and effort. Like I started to realize that as I became a father, like how much time we really spend into, you're just trying to make them survive and make them happy and all this stuff. And it is a job in itself. And it's you have no concept of that growing up. At least I didn't.
And you have no idea how you're going to feel until you send that first child off to college. Right outside that window here in my studio, I can see my hot tub. And my daughter's only 20 minutes away from us. It's not like she went to, wherever in the Northeast, Yale or something like that. We got back and my wife and I got into the hot tub. We didn't speak to each other, kind of like a 20-minute lull, a Freudian 20-minute lull. I looked at her and we're both just bawling, sobbing. And with what you just said, we felt like she was gone and we weren't going to get our little girl back. And it's true, we won't. She's an adult now and she's gone off to college and she's independent. And luckily she came back this weekend while I was here and I got to see her because I won't see her for another month because of my travel schedule and things of that nature. So exactly what I said about my mom, I want to make sure it doesn't happen with my girls.
Yeah, it's so smart. I think it's important to talk about. It's funny. I see that with my father-in-law when my wife goes, anytime she's just around him, like he's just so excited and turns the hard edge turns to soft little teddy bear. And then, I'm like that. That's so interesting that happens because he's this big CEO and all this stuff. And then I've done the same thing with my daughter because I don't know if it's about having a girl or whatever it is, man, but it's just like a weird thing that goes through. And so
nothing better than being a girl dad, right?
No, there's nothing better. It's awesome. It's the coolest thing ever. We came home and played some chalk for like 20 minutes before this podcast. I was just sitting in the driveway with my pink in my hand, dude. It's the best. Doing nothing. Awesome. It's hilarious. But
how old is your daughter?
16 months.
Nice. Yeah. Wait till she starts painting your nails and putting mascara on you and all that type of stuff.
She can do whatever, man. I'm in for it. I'm excited for it. But it's,
as long as you come on the pod with it on, then that's fine, right?
Yeah, dude. Hey, no shame in my game at this point, man. It's great. But Bill, I have one question for you, and I know we're wrapping up. We're a little bit long here, but this one's kind of a pivot back into the business world slightly. And I'm only asking this as kind of like a selfish question for Corey and I. You mentioned a lot with HubSpot. We've been, I was debating using HubSpot for email marketing, our platform for CRM and a lot of things, and then ConvertKit for email marketing. I'm just bringing up a lot of different things. My question circling all of this is, being that you've been in the marketing game for a long time, we have this coaching program that we recently launched, and it's been really successful so far. I think we probably had some low-hanging fruit where some people that have been engaged with us for a long period of time listen to the podcast and they're like, hey, listen, like we want to be around you guys. You've built a portfolio of 70 plus units. We want in, teach us. We're at the point where we're trying to scale this thing now, right? And we want to get in front of as many people as possible, but also the right people and people that we really think we can impact and change. I'm wondering if you have any experience over your vast business years on like how to best market to get someone into your coaching program or become aware of it, right? There's so many different things out there. And I'm just so curious what works for people, what doesn't work for people. And you've had a million businesses, and any thoughts here would be amazing.
Do we have another half hour? This could be a long one. I'm just telling you, if you want me to unpack this.
We got as long as
honestly, as long as you're willing, we're good. Yeah.
Do you know who Jeff Walker is from Product Launch Formula?
No.
Go to Amazon and buy the book Launch, Launch. He is the founder of Product Launch Formula and Launch. Everybody who's anybody in coaching programs and online, from Donald Miller, Michael Hyatt, Amy Porterfield, James Wedmore, Russell Brunson, I could keep going on and on. They all learned from Jeff Walker and Launch. Okay. And if you don't want me to go very long, I can summarize this very easily. Dharmesh Shah and Brian Halligan, the two founders of HubSpot, they were both SEO guys, from a marketing perspective, and they wanted to build a software platform that was the all-in-one marketing platform, and they launched in 2006. I became an early customer, number 33 in early 2007. But their methodology was stop disrupting and create content that is so valuable to your customer that they will come to you. Hence the inbound marketing, right? We're not disrupting. We're just going to put out valuable content, and our customers will come to us. I combine that with a former client of mine, a guy named Coach Michael Burt, who's a big coach. He's been on 10X Stage with Grant, and he wrote a book called The Person of Interest. So I always try to become the person of interest in every business. Even, look, there's a brand new restaurant, and not brand new, but it's been about a year and a half. My wife took me and my girls there for my birthday on May 11th. It was an Italian restaurant called Luogo. I'd never been there, didn't know anything about it. We walked in, first 30 minutes. First time I go to a nice restaurant, I let either the som or the owner pick out a bottle of wine for me. I let the owner pick out a bottle of wine. I said, bring us your two best apps. They were awesome. I get up out of my chair. I go introduce myself to him. I said, hey, I'm Bill Faeth. He's like, I'm Anthony Scortano. And we just started chatting. And I said, I absolutely love what you've done for us already. I'm going to become one of your best customers. And he was like, oh my God, you're amazing. He was just so good at hospitality. He would touch me on my arm. He was looking me in the eye, all of these things. So a week later, I go back again. A week later, we go back again. I asked him when we were there 2 weeks ago, before I had to travel last week and host a mastermind meeting, the server, I said, how many times have we been in here since May 11th? They said 13 times, Mr. Faeth. I'm like, holy shit. I spent a week in Canada, a week in Montana, and 3 weeks in Europe, and we've been in there 13 times. I said, can you do me one more favor? Can you see what my average bill is? He said, I know that to a T. It's $513 on your average bill. And that's because I'm buying like a $200 or $250 bottle of wine every time. Anthony is probably the best guy I've ever seen at hospitality. But because I wanted to become the person of interest, I got up and I introduced myself. When I walked back to the table, I looked at Gentry, my oldest daughter. I said, do you know why I went and introduced myself? She's like, yes, because you want him to take care of you when you come back next time. And I said, that's right. And the next time we went back, it was just my wife and I have a really good friend in Napa Valley. He owns the largest ground transportation company, but also makes his own wine called Sire Estate. which is insanely good. No, just private distribution, like literally rated 99 and 100 by Robert Parker every year since 2013. What do you think I did? I took Anthony a bottle of that. And he's like, man, I'm going to put this in my cellar. I said, no, you're going to fucking crack that right now, and we're going to taste it together. You can take it in the back, but I want you to taste it now. And if you love it, I'm going to bring you some more. So what did I do on the third visit? I went back and took him a 3-pack, right? So that way we cracked the one that I gave him. I wanted to actually give him a gift. Said, take this home, put this in your cellar. And when I forgot the part when I handed him the first beer, he owned a restaurant called Fresco Scoto in North Manhattan for 38 years, one of the most successful restaurants. He's been on the Today Show over 400 times. He was a celebrity chef before celebrity chefs became famous with Emeril and Bobby Flay and all of them. And he has taken such great care of me and my family because I became the person of interest with him, right? And it's not about spending $500. And I asked him, I said, am I your biggest customer? He's all, nope. He's all, but you're my favorite. And, that's the most important thing, right? So I think the lessons here, the hospitality that he implements, but I am always trying to become the person of interest. When I got into, so I started Build Short-Term Rental Wealth, my coaching business in this space, on June 1st of 2020. So I was with Grant Cardone at 10X and a limousine conference where I was the big man on campus in the limousine space because I had built a $10 million company there and then started Limo University. And we left that conference on like the last day of February 27th, I think it was. And, we were shut down by March 14th, like within 2 weeks. And I was the first vendor of any capacity to notify my members and say, I'm going to support you through this, but I'm stopping 100% of all charges. So my revenue went to zero right off the bat because I knew that was the right thing to do. But I couldn't sustain that without EIDL, PPP, all that type of stuff. Chris, my COO, who at that time had been with me for about 3.5 years, came to me and said, in May, it's time. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? We're like walking out to our cars in the parking lot from an office. He's all, it's time to go into the short-term rental space. I said, no, I don't really want to. He just convinced me a little bit more. He said, let me think about it. Week later, I decided to. We launched Build Short-Term Rental Wealth with a Facebook group, no website, no nothing, on June 1st of 2020. The first product that I created to sell was created between Christmas and January of that year. And it was a $4,500 mastermind group. I had spent the last 6 months, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8, 10 hours in everybody else's Facebook groups that were out there, not like the spammy guys that are linking back to their group, leveraging that and Clubhouse, that November, December, if you guys remember Clubhouse, to build my brand. And at that time I had like 2,300 people in my Facebook group. And I personally invited 18 to join my mastermind and 15 joined between Christmas and New Year's. We had our first in-person meeting in Gulf Shores in February. It was such a hit with them. They got such great testimonials from them. In the limousine space, in my office in downtown Nashville, I would host 30 to 50 people, and I had done 28 boot camps in the limousine space. So in June of 2021, I launched my first boot camp, and I'll never forget, I had 64 people that were there, and I opened up my mastermind, raised my price from $4,500 to $7,500, went through 2 days, 8 hours a day of just intense delivery, systems, marketing, listing up, all that stuff. And half of those people had come out of about 2 weeks previously that attended there for the guy's brand that I built, which is STR University. And we literally had 31% of those 64 people join my mastermind because of how amazing of a job I did teaching. They would have never done that if I didn't earn the trust, if I didn't earn the respect, if I didn't earn every single thing. If I would have started selling right off the bat, ran Facebook ads, everything else, people get turned off immediately. So every business that I've gone into since I started working with HubSpot in 2007, I have literally had what I call the incubation period to become the person of interest and to become the big man on campus, to become the most trust agent. Chris Brogan wrote a book years ago called Trust Agents. And that's all I'm trying to do is earn their trust by working free for them. And it's worked every single time that I've done that. So what I would tell you guys is to scale in this, and it also comes from Jeff Walker. That's why the product launch formula, you'll find out he does 3 training videos in his launch sequence. And you're a beginner if you do 10 to 12 minute videos. You're an intermediate if you're doing like 18 to 24 minute videos. You're an expert if you're doing like 30 to 45 minute training videos in your free training in this launch sequence. And remember, this originated in 2004 is when he founded this, right? And it's evolutionized through here over the years. He didn't even have B-roll until his son became a videographer like in 2016 or 17. And these videos, it's just him talking head standing there talking and preaching. But he was giving long format before people did long format. It's like Neil Patel writing 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 word blog articles that became the authority in 2010, 11, 12, when everybody else is spinning content and putting out 400 to 500 word blog articles, trying to write 4 or 5 a day. Kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It's putting in the real work, taking those 2 extra steps, doing the stuff that everybody else won't do. I don't know that anybody would ever go into a coaching space and work for 6 months for free, to try to build the trust. But I can tell you, I don't have the biggest social media following. Corey, you saw on Instagram, I don't even have 10,000 followers there. I probably got 4,000 or 5,000 on TikTok. LinkedIn's probably my biggest. I think I have like 8, 9, 10,000 there. I've got like 10 or 12 on Twitter, but I don't even use it anymore. That's from back in my HubSpot days. But I've got 33,000 rabid fans, kind of like Pace does in his, that's 150,000, in my group, because I deliver and I'm always there for them. And I think one of the big things outside of just earning trust is being accessible. So there's a lot of coaches, not just in the real estate space, but in all the other spaces, and they hide behind, the shield of their sales team and their VAs and all that type of stuff. I am readily accessible. And I think there's 3 things for me. I've earned the trust. People know I put in the work. They know I'm authentic. But most importantly is going to be that accessibility. And they know that they're getting what they see here. For people that have met me in person or seen me at a conference or whatever, they know that's my real personality. There's no bullshit here. Yep. And I think that's what makes a great coach. And I've had the fortune to be in a mastermind with almost every one of those people that I told you. One of 3 people had to pay for the mastermind when Amy Porterfield, Russell Brunson, all these other guys are in it. We had to pay for access. But I've learned that exact same thing from them. And every one of them are salt. They're salt of the earth. It's not a front. It's not an act. They're exactly as you see them online. And they all put their customers first. And if they didn't, they couldn't build $50 or $100 million businesses.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bill, you became the person of interest on this podcast episode for sure. So I want to thank you, because some of the things you said as we started this, we got it off the ground. This is going to come out like next week, but we started our program on August 1. We've had 7 people buy in already, which for us, it was a good start. And I said to Rye when we were doing this, I was like, dude, we have to be accessible, and we have to talk to these people all the time. We have to deliver the most amount of value that they're like, I can't believe I wish I would have paid double, right? Like that type of value. So this is amazing information. I could talk to you for another half hour. I do respect your time though. This is awesome. So,
and I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is with that, Corey. If I can make an announcement, because I haven't announced this publicly. I think this is coming out next week. I am actually hosting BNB camp at my $3 million property in Whitefish, Montana for 200 people with 2 days of education with Pace Morby, my good friend Pace, Jerry Norton, one of the best wholesalers and flippers in the country, Patrick Swentek, who has built a property management and co-hosting company from 5 to 113 months, Kenny Bedwell, the best data analyst in our industry, and it's 100% free. You can go to bnbcamp.com, and if you're one of the first 200 people to sign up, you get to come for free. No cost. I am spending about $45,000 to $55,000 to put on an amazing event like I've never done before. It's not just going to be in a hotel teaching all day. We're going to have extreme networking. We're going to have deal making areas. You're going to have partnerships that are going to be put together. We're going to be singing around the campfire. I've got a band, or it could be a DJ or a band coming, catering the whole thing. It is going to be a lot of fun. That's why we're calling it BNB Camp. And if anybody is familiar with what is going on right now in Kalispell, Montana, Pace has his community camp going on. It is basically geared out as a smaller one of his community camps. So it's going to be off the chain. I'm really looking forward to that.
Love it, man. Well, if anybody's listening to this episode still, we're about an hour and 15 in, which I imagine there are quite a few people still listening. You can tell Bill is the real deal, and I can just tell by the way he speaks, the way he portrays information in himself. You can tell he's done the stuff that he's talking about. So sign up for that, people, if you're listening. If you can get out there, it sounds like it's an awesome opportunity to network with you. And that would be my last.
You guys are invited too if you want to come. October 12th and 13th, Whitefish, Montana.
12th and 13th. We're going to be in Scottsdale, the next weekend or the following. So I was wondering if we could parlay that, but we'll see if we can. Bill, if people want to learn more about you, they want to network, they want to, besides the event, which I think people should go to, obviously, but like, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and learn from all that you've done?
I mean, same way you did. Go to Instagram, Bill Faeth 73 FAETH. Bill at billfaeth.com. Build Short-Term Rental Wealth is my real estate education website and my Facebook group. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere except for Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it. Pretty easy to find. If you just type in my name, Bill Faeth, FAETH, you'll find me everywhere. Shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to respond to you and help you.
Take us out, Rye. No, Bill, appreciate the time, man. This is awesome. I've gained, so much information in an hour and 15 minutes from talking to you, more than many podcast episodes. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. And, I absolutely want to stay in touch.
Yeah. Thank you guys. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, Bill. We'll stay in touch. I feel like we could do 7 more of these based on all the different lanes you've had and gone through in your life. And I really appreciate the philosophical stuff too at the end. It was good to get to know you, and we'll definitely be staying in touch. This one of our favorite episodes to date. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Wealth Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Wealth Juice Official, where we post daily tips, tricks, and document our own journey towards financial freedom.